Welcome back, listeners. This episode is brought to you by my brand new, but not really used degree. I hope you enjoy the show.
So, welcome back, everybody, to our podcast.
Yes, welcome back. I hope you got some Dunkaroos or Fruit Gushers to fill that empty week.
I want to, but I can't. The only time I'm jealous of you is when you can get Fruit Gushers and I can't.
Fruit Gushers are amazing.
But what we're going to talk about today is actually my mom's request because after my mom listened to our first episode, she told me, I called her and then she's like, when you were in Korea or China or Canada, we lived all together. But then after I went to Swiss and Sally went to the States to study, she's like, I wasn't there. So I'm always curious about what you guys did and how your life was. So can you guys talk about that so I can listen? So Mom, this one's for you. Hi.
Yes, we're going to talk to you in depth about the life that we had basically on our own.
Yeah. So this one will be Sally's when Sally was in the States because that was more recent than mine. So Sally, her memory's fresher. So best to get that done and out of the way because I still need to think of what I did.
That's true, yes. I remember clearly what has happened while I was doing my degree.
And to be fair, me and my mom visited Sally once, so there will be some stories where I can share with her. But Sally, take it away.
Well, I'll just put in some general information before Sophia kind of asks me questions because I didn't have a whole story planned in my head. So I have a degree in biochemistry. I chose biochemistry because in high school I thought I like biology, I like chemistry, I don't really like physics, so what's the thing I can do without physics but can be in science? I thought was biochemistry. Apparently, biochemistry is very different from biology and chemistry separately. So it didn't really make any sense when I got in. But, I made it through the 4 years, so it's all good. If you ask me the structure of an amino acid, I won't know, but I can relearn it in very quick time.
I've heard of an amino acid.
So I think Sophia had a list of questions that she wanted to ask me, just so I can give an overall story, because I can't summarize all 4 years in 30 minutes.
Okay, let's tell everyone your first impression the moment you landed at the airport.
Where am I is the first impression I had. So what that means is, so my school is in but nowhere. It's literally in the suburbs, right? And I only realized that my school was in the suburbs is when the airplane landed. First of all, the airplane was a propeller plane that can hold 46 people maximum. So I fly from Korea to a middle stop airport where it's a big airport, and then I would transfer to a small ass plane to come to the airport that's by my school because that's the only airport that apparently exists near my school. So as soon as the airplane starts to land, you can see miles and miles of just corn crops. You just see corn everywhere. And I know it was corn because you could see the corn coming out of the little stalks. It was just pure corn. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just agricultural heavy. So once you leave the airport's so small that there's only one place of baggage claim for the whole airport, and it's outside of security. So usually, you go through TSA and then you get your bags and then, you go out to the gate and people come greet you. The place that people greet you is where the baggage claim is. So technically, someone could come early and just steal your bag. It's possible.
But I don't think that.
The worst thing is fine, there's one baggage claim, but the airport is so small. Sometimes the luggage that you bring doesn't make it on the plane that you're riding to. So your luggage gets stuck at the previous airport for a couple days until they can get another flight in. I've had times where I forgot and I put my valuables, my dorm key, my student ID, in my checked bag, and they didn't get it back for a week later, but I had to go to my room So I had to ask for like a temporary key and ID because I couldn't get in because my stupid ass forgot to put it in my backpack. So that's also one horrible thing that I've experienced. So yeah, that airport's very small. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's a 15-minute ride to campus from like, using a taxi.
And just to say, her campus is the town.
Yeah, so the university was built first, and then the town was built around the university for the students there. So it wasn't a university that was built in the middle of a city. The university was established first, and then the city was kind of built around it. So during like breaks, like Christmas break or summer break, well, I guess not summer break, but during Christmas break, the whole town is completely empty. Like, majority of the restaurants are closed because the students are the majority of the income of that town. So during winter break, there's like no one there. All the shops are closed. The restaurants are kind of closed. It's like a ghost town once it's not like school season.
Yeah, because her school is quite big and the city's kind of built around it. So you could say the school is the main point of that town.
It is, yeah.
When you first went to school, did you miss anything in like particular?
What do you mean miss?
Like apart from family, what did you miss? Like what did you miss doing or something like that?
The only impression that I have when I first went to university is how unfair the system was to international students.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is once you're accepted to the university, you have to actually physically go on campus to activate your student username and your password and your school email and everything. And once you activate your email and your password, you're allowed to register for classes. So usually once you're accepted and you say you're going to attend the school, they tell you when to come to campus, and then you'll have like an orientation day where you go with your parents, you set up all your stuff, register your classes, and then you go home. So your orientation's done in like a day or two. But for international students, they tell us to arrive 1 week before class starts. So in the States, class starts on the last week of August. So we go on the second last week of August to activate our student IDs, our emails, and everything. But because the students who are within the US have already started registering their classes from like June or July, all the majority of the necessary classes are already filled. So if I want to apply or if I want to get into my general chemistry class, I wasn't able to get in because all the other kids have already taken the spots. So in that case, it was very unfair. I feel like if they knew a certain number of international students were coming, they should have reserved a certain number of spots. But it's majority of just first come, first serve. And if you were on the wait list, you had to immediately register that class as soon as someone dropped it, or else you wouldn't get in. It wasn't like a wait list system where if I was number 2 on the wait list and someone dropped the class, number 1 just automatically gets in and I get bumped up to number 1. Everything is a first come, first serve. So I thought that was also very unfair. And that gave me a lot of anxiety when I first went, because if I don't get into these classes, I can't register and I can't apply for the degree that I want to. So you need to take all these classes in first and second year before you can even apply for the major that you're going into, which is biochemistry for me. And the only way I got into that class is I directly contacted the professor who was teaching that class. And because he can adjust the registrar, he was able to manually add me to the class. And that's how I got into the class. So I thought that was my first impression, and I really hated it. And I think I cried a lot because of that. Because I wasn't able to get into any of the classes that I needed to.
Yeah, like it was always stressful, not just for you, but for me and mom as well, because by that time I was in Swiss and mom was in Korea. So when we were doing when it was Sally in that kind of situations, she'd be calling mom and talking to her until my mom went to sleep. And then in the morning when I woke up, then she'd be calling me and then we'd be talking to her apart from me taking classes until I went to sleep and my mom woke up.
So it's like majority of the day I was awake, I was able to contact either Sophia or my mom.
Yeah.
But they felt the stress through me because there was no other person I could express this to, because I had no friends when I first went. I didn't know anyone there because I went to school in a completely different country.
Yeah. Which I feel like for me as well, when I first went to Swiss, it was difficult because I didn't want to just be with Asians, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because when you go to a new place, you want to meet a diversity of people. And it's hard especially for Sally, because even though she studied in Canada, she coming as an international student is not coming from Canada to US. It's coming from as a Korean
Korea.
to coming
So
to
even though
US.
my first language is English and I'm more accustomed to Western culture than Asian culture, I'm still perceived as, I guess, what people would say a fob, right? A fresh off the boat. Someone who they assume, doesn't know a lot of English, has a very thick accent or whatever. And that's always the first impression that I got, no matter what, until I started speaking English. Because whenever I would say I'm an international student and I would speak to them, they're like, oh, wow, but your English is really good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I studied in Canada, so my English is my first language. It's just my nationality is an
Yeah.
international student.
And also because of the way Sally is, she can't really relate to real like fresh off the boat Korean.
Yeah, there are a lot of Korean student associations that were available in my university, but I just never could go because first of all, they have a very like heavy drinking culture, which I don't like particularly, and also the legal drinking age in the US is 21. So if everyone's underage and you get caught, you're kind of screwed because you're not a citizen there, right? So it gets put on your record first of all. And there's some parts of the culture that they strongly enforce that I don't really like to implement. So an example of that is for in Korea, if you talk to someone who's older than you or a stranger, you have to talk formally. So if I would say hi, that wouldn't be accepted. You would have to say like hello, like the equivalent of
Yeah.
the same word but in more formal ways. And I never grew up using that. I only used that formality to my family, like my family in Korea and mom. I didn't have that thought process of using that terminology to anyone else. So that's one thing I didn't really like. I didn't like having to enforce that for other people. And I never really grew up in Korea, so I wasn't used to other social Korean cultural cues that maybe I would have known if I lived in Korea. So, yes, we're the same nationality and I can understand them, but the way that they talk and the way that they interact with each other is completely different and something I've never experienced in my whole life.
Which makes sense, which is why you had such a difficulty making friends in the beginning, because you didn't have that backup of Korean people becoming your friends.
Yeah, so I had to solely rely on just people who were not Korean, as you can say. So a lot of my first friends were people who were from the States, so American people. But yeah, I even until the end of my 4 years, I don't think I had a Korean friend there. Maybe
Hmm.
like one or two, but I didn't purposely go out of my way to meet Korean people. I just so happened if I met them and they were cool, I would be friends with them. But my majority of my friend group were not Korean, they were American.
Yeah. Then what did you end up liking the most about your school?
So I think, majority of what I liked about university is also the classes that I took. So the classes were very intense, like I told you about all my stress of scheduling classes. But it's from my classes that I've met my closest friends throughout the different years. So first year, it's all general science. You have, like general chemistry, microbiology that like everyone in science kind of has to take. So you don't really meet very, very close friends there because after you meet them, second year they can go to a completely different path of classes and you might never see them again. So one friend that I made was actually my neighbor in the dorm that I first lived in. She was American, so we took Gen Chem together. Not in the same section, but we were both in the same class. And we were in the same section for the chemistry lab classes, so we had a lot of times where we would study together and stuff like that. But once you go more deeply into, second year, third year, and fourth
Your
year,
actual major.
your classes get, yeah, you take the classes that are actually required for your major, and they get a lot more smaller and more intense. So one of the good friends that I've made is actually in my third and fourth years in college. So in third year, everyone tries, so you have to take this organic chemistry class in second year. So the lecture portion is fine. You're able to, register and go into the class fine. But during that time, the organic chemistry laboratory building was going under construction. So the amount of sections that they had for labs were dramatically decreased. So for organic chemistry, you have to go 2 days a week for 3 hours each time. So it's a total of 6 hours a week. And since you only had a limited amount of space, the amount of students that they could put into the lab classes were very limited. So I actually got into my organic chemistry class a year after I took both the lectures. During that lab, actually, I met Tori. She knows we have this podcast, and I still keep in contact with her. But she was a senior then, so she was 1 year older than I was. But she was in the same hood as me. So we were doing the same chemistry experiments in the same bench. So we shared spaces, and we shared, glassware and stuff like that. And this was the funniest interaction I had. So you do know who you're sitting beside because you're set a lab bench number and you know who your partner is because you have to work with them. So it said that her name was Kelly on the attendance sheet because you get that before the class starts. So she comes in and I was like, "Oh, hi, are you Kelly?" And she's like, "No, I'm Tori." And I was like, "Wow, rude. You don't have to lie about your name." Because I thought she was Kelly because that's all I knew. But apparently Kelly dropped the class and Tori got in. So after that, I was like, "Oh, sorry, I just thought you were Kelly because that's what was written on the syllabus or whatever." But because you spend 6 hours together every week and you usually do stay the full 6 hours every time you go, you just talk when you chat. You have experiments to run. And if you're waiting for something to evaporate for an hour, you just chat along with your lab partner or whatever. And we became very close where before our organic chemistry labs that would start at 6:30, we would go get dinner together. And if it was after lab and I didn't have classes on Fridays, which was amazing, so on Thursday after lab ended, we would go get ice cream together or bubble tea together. So we actually had a really good time and we actually became really close friends because of that class. So I did appreciate that the smaller classes in the upper years would allow you to make better friends. Especially fourth year, my final year, we took this biochem lab class where you did a lot of experiments that I won't go into detail. I knew my friend was in this section, and I was like, "Oh, well," he's like, "I don't really know anyone else who's going to be in that class. I don't know if I'm going to have a good lab partner because, a bad lab partner kind of sucks ass. If they don't do their work, you have to do everything, especially if you're graded together." So he was kind of worried that he wouldn't find someone that would be good enough, would actually put in the effort to do the work. So he goes into his little experiment thing, and he sees someone who's sitting by himself. So the friend I'm talking about is Brett and Ayush, and I know that they know about this podcast too. So if you listen, hello. So Ayush was sitting by himself at the lab bench, and he actually saved the seat for his friend. But my other friend didn't know, and he put his bag down and just sat there because he thought it was an empty seat. So he was like, "Oh, hi," and then my other friend was not confrontational enough to tell him that he was saving the seat for someone else. So they just sat there together. And we did have a class together, somewhere down along that semester, so just not at the same time.
Yeah.
But after that, Brett came up to me like, "Oh, this is my friend Ayush. We're in the same, lab together." And I was like, "Oh, I'm in the same lab. I'm just in a different section." And they told me how they met, which is, Brett stole the spot that my other friend was saving for. And after that, we spent a lot of time together. We would go home or go to my friend's house and bake stuff, cook stuff, just hang out together. Those were the friends that I actually went out to drink legally for the first time when I turned 21.
She waited for that midnight strike.
Yeah, we hung out together. We went to see It together for the first time, Pennywise, because it was showing free at the theater in our school. Ugh. We went to watch that together. We went sledding together in front of our cafeteria building because the whole thing was frozen sheet of ice. We went sledding together. I've made a lot of good memories, and we still keep in contact. And we also did take our grad photos together when we had a chance.
I remember.
So the thing that I liked most about college is actually the last 2 years when I made the friends I still keep in contact with until now.
I think it's because like that. Because when you're in first and second year, you're taking a lot of the classes that everyone has to take in order for them to go to their
Mm-hmm.
degree. And then once you go to
Yeah.
third and fourth year, because you're doing specialized classes for your degree, you actually meet friends that you will see on a regular basis rather than you meet someone that you just have the one class with in like first or second year.
Yeah. So I did enjoy it. And also, like, during your fourth year, we follow, like, this academic plan where it's kind of, they kind of plan out which classes you should take when to graduate, like, on time on the 4 years. And on your fourth year, they have lots of spots for electives that are still within, like, biochemistry and microbiology. So one of the classes I really enjoyed was a virology class that I took as an elective. And I took it with my friend Ayush, which I've mentioned before. And basically, it was difficult in the sense where you had to memorize every single different type of virus, the size of the virus, how they replicate, what kind of DNA they have. Do they even have DNA or do they have RNA? Is it double-stranded? Is it single-stranded?
Oh
Like, we
my
had to
god.
memorize all the details of that and how they, replicate it in your body, like where would they would go to and stuff like that.
The
Like, it was a very, like,
nucleus. No.
they don't have it.
I meant they go to your nucleus, no?
Yes. Well, it's some, yeah.
I know viruses don't have nucleus, okay? That's what differentiates them from bacteria.
Yes.
Excuse me.
But yeah, we had to memorize all that stuff. But just that class was just so fascinating. Like, I learned from that class that rabies, like the rabies vaccine, can be given preventatively. So before you get, you get rabies from, a bite or something, or it can be actually given after to prevent the rabies virus from getting to your brain. As long as the vaccine is given within like 24 hours of you getting bitten, which was amazing. I didn't know that. And that's because the rabies virus takes so long to actually move from the puncture wound to your brain. You have time for your body to know how to fight it off before it even actually gets there.
That's cool.
So those are some like interesting stuff that I've learned from that class. And it's amazing. Like, it's an elective that I chose, but it was so interesting. I really liked it. Like the coronavirus, I know, very interesting during these times. But it's named corona because the actual virus has very crown-like features. And the word for crown in Spanish is corona. That's where the name comes from. So I also thought those like little, snippets of facts were really interesting. And I really enjoyed that class.
Wonder why they thought of a Spanish name for that virus.
I don't know. Well, it might also be maybe depend on where they were discovered. I actually don't know that, but I just know that's where it comes from because the shape resembles like a crown.
That's what I know as well. But I thought that was just interesting. I don't know how people come up with names for viruses. I think that's quite interesting. I think that should be a subject on its own. Like, where do names of viruses derive from? And
the nomenclature?
Yeah.
They probably have a way, but I don't want to learn it.
No.
That's too much for me.
But then in the end, you liked school. You enjoyed school. Probably the first 2 years were hard just because it was different than something you've ever like experienced.
Yeah, and to put into perspective, any time like university was the first time I actually was alone and away from family.
That's true.
Because up till high school, I was always living with my mom or my mom and my sister. But university was the first time I was ever apart, and I think I felt a lot of separation anxiety when I first left.
But to be fair, whenever mom needed to leave, or if we had to stay
my
with
body
someone
would just crash.
Else, you would get sick straight away. Like the moment mom walked out the door, you'd be sick.
Yeah, because there was this one time when we were younger that our mom had to leave.
Yeah, and then
Sophia was taking care of me.
And then we were staying with some adults as well. But then the moment my mom left, Sally became completely sick.
No, right? Even before mom left, I started getting like these hives all over my body.
Oh, I remember like those white bumps.
And I had to get because it wasn't just hives. It looked like, like cracked stone. like stone path thing. It was like big, like, you know, bumps of skin.
It kind of looked like welches of mosquito bites, like big welches of mosquito bites.
So I got taken to the ER, and they couldn't really find out what was wrong with it. They just gave me like some general medication, I think.
But I think, to be fair, it's just from separation anxiety.
Yeah, and then as soon as she left, it started spreading like to my face. It was like on my eye, I remember, because we went to church, and in the middle, I was like crying so much that they actually took me to the hospital again, just to make sure like it wasn't something worse, because it was actually spreading and it wasn't getting better with the medication. But that was probably also due to the stress I was feeling. And I would like go home and I would like vomit. I wouldn't be able to eat anything. Like, it was bad. Like, I had really bad separation anxiety when I was younger, and I think I never learned how to deal with it until I went to college.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I was in my first year, I went home for winter break, and I came back. And I think just that separation again gave me so much stress, where I suffered, like, insomnia for 4 or 5 days, where it was to the point where I had hallucinations. So I know at that time Sophia was in Switzerland, and I was so tired from not sleeping like at night that I crashed in the middle of the day from like 3 or to 5 p.m. or something. Because I told Sophia, you know, can you call me to wake me up at this time? Because I don't want to, you know, sleep in the middle of the day and have my sleep schedule even more messed up. I slept through her phone call, so I didn't even hear it. And as soon as I woke up, I flipped over like my roommate's bed and my bed. I was like tearing like the blankets off the bed, saying like, Sophia, where are you? And I did that for like a solid 3 minutes until my brain clicked that you're not even in the same continent as I am. So why am I looking for you if you're physically not here? And that was the first time I realized maybe I should get this checked by a doctor, because it's getting out of hand. Like, I'm hallucinating stuff and I'm thinking and seeing stuff that's not there, and then my brain processes it later.
Yeah, you probably didn't know, but when I first went to China without your mom, I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. I think it was just separation anxiety that just manifested.
Like, because I used to wake up in the middle of the night, be like, Mom, like, where are you? Where are you? Like, because when I went to China, I was really young. I was only like 14.
Yeah.
So when I went, and then I was like by myself.
You were 13 because you went.
Yeah, 13, 14, and then I'd be like, Mom, like, where are you? I thought like I'd like go around looking for her, and then I'd realize like, oh right, like I'm at the dorm, like I'm not there.
Yeah. And like mine, it just got so bad where I did go to a doctor, and they did explain like it's due to, you know, separation anxiety and jet lag and stress, like all together. It's like the worst combination possible. And she did give me like medication that would help me sleep, and that did help me get through that resetting my sleep schedule and getting back on track.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to realize that it was actually a big problem, and I had to learn how to deal with this. Later on,
because you've never been apart ever in your life. I think that's probably
ever
the
until
reason
that point.
why.
Yeah,
because I kind of got separated when I was younger, so I had more time to deal with it and get used to it. But then you never did.
Yeah, I've never been separated or just been on my own since then.
Yeah.
So it was that transition, I think, was the hardest for me throughout the whole 4 years I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've had obviously very, you know, fun moments and stuff, but that was, I think,
the beginning was hard. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the most difficult thing. And the freaking scheduling classes didn't help my anxiety either.
No.
Because I don't think I ever, scheduled my classes stress-free until my last year.
Yeah, but then also I guess in the end, we're thinking of it as an experience. Because you're not going to experience, like, something like that ever again, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's done with. I'm done with it now.
Yeah.
But it was a very big stress trigger when I was there.
Yeah, but I mean, y'all had to listen through all of our gruesome history today.
Yeah, so
there is pain international students go through. I'm sure a lot of like local kids have problems.
Yeah, and the thing is, I just can't imagine kids who go through exactly what I went through but can't communicate fluently. Yeah, because I didn't have a language barrier, so I could just call and ask them if something was wrong, something about, registering classes. But if you also had that stress of being away from family and not being able to communicate 100%, I can't even imagine how stressful that was.
That would be much more stressful. At least you're able to communicate and you had someone also to talk to about. But if they had parents like that doesn't speak like English at all completely or cannot completely understand the problem at hand, that would be even more stressful.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be to have the ability to communicate. But aside from that, it was still very stressful.
Anything else you wanted to add before we sign off for this episode on a happier note?
I just want to say, even though the first transition was very stressful, I'm still thankful for Mom and all the effort she put into that allowed me to still study abroad and study and get a degree at a very well-known university, and just to have an experience that not a lot of kids have still right now.
Maybe we should have a segment in our podcast called I Love Mom. And then we just talk about how much we love Mom.
Yeah, but I just really want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn and to just experience a different type of culture that I probably would have never gotten if she never, cared enough.
Yeah, because
about us.
We are so thankful for our mom. Our mom is the best. Our mom's like my mom's my life, my love. She's everything. So for us, our mom is so important. She's the one that taught us everything from being respectful, how to, how to be respectful to adults, to people we don't know, to friends, how to do well in school, how to study. It's all because of our mom.
Just how to navigate life.
Yeah, it's all because of our mom's efforts. And she didn't have it easy as well, because when she had left Korea, she was only in her early 30s. So she was still young.
Very, yeah.
But then she had to take care of the two of us. So Mom, we love you so much.
Yeah, and really thank you for just giving us all these opportunities that we could have never asked for.
Yeah. But thank you everyone so much for listening to Sally's story. Probably next time if I get a chance, I will talk to you about my life in Switzerland and in New Zealand, and maybe clips of China. China is a bit foggy to me because I was a bit young, but we could probably get through all of those countries in an episode. But please remember...
Yeah, because I can add to the China stories too, because my perspective is also very different than probably everyone else's too.
That's true. But please listen to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. If you do listen to us on Apple, please rate us and write a review. On Spotify, please follow if you get the chance. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Mixing Cultures Podcast. We upload our episodes on Eastern Standard Time every Sunday at 3 p.m. Yes. In New Zealand time, that's Monday 8 a.m. because we're fast.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. because we're fast like that. So just stay tuned. We try to post as much things on possible on Instagram that's related to our episodes. But to everyone, please have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening to this. And we hope you have a great day.
Yes, thank you for staying with me and listening to all the ups and downs that I had experienced while getting my degree. And I just want to say thank you for sticking till the end, even though you do have the option to skip 15 seconds on Spotify.
Okay, everyone, then. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.